Konami Studios. Lovecraft Country, the latest and arguably the greatest to come from HBO. This feels like it's trying to fill that Game of Thrones hole that's left there. And for the most part, I think it does. Now, there's going to be a non-spoiler review because I wholeheartedly believe this is the kind of show that deserves to be watched by everyone, and everyone can have their experience enjoying it and viewing it. I'm just here to give you a little bit of thought and ideas of what the show is before you go in and watch it yourself, because I 100% believe this is one of the greatest shows to come out this year. I don't know if it's my favorite. I always keep a list of every show I watch during the year, and then I do an end of the year thing where I talk about my favorites. And this is definitely going to be on the list for the top 10, but I don't know if it's my number one. It might be in my top 3 because everything about this show worked so well. I don't want to say it's perfect. I don't think it is perfect. I think there's a few little issues here or there of the story, with the characters and that kind of stuff. But overall, if you want a well thought out piece of television that feels like it concluded in a beautiful, satisfying way, that gives you fresh and innovative characters, that goes to places you're kind of familiar with in the genre trope, but it's doing something completely unique and interesting and frightening and intense and real, this is the show for you. So Misha Green, I'm not too familiar with her work. She is the showrunner of this series, and basically you could tell what she was trying to do when you just see the first episode. It's this idea that, like, we are in the 60s, we are in the times where African American people are not really accepted yet, you know. There's still those ideas in the world, and I like that idea that that's where we're taking place in this book. It adds another level to it, and I know that it could be something that's like, oh, we always have to go down this road, don't we, to show that black people are here, but it's like, you need that element in this story to understand why these characters get to these places, and I think it really adds to this series, just having it be in this time period. This story doesn't work if it's in the modern day, or if it's in any other time period. I think having it in this era really benefits from it, because you see the struggles of these people when they're going to, like, sundown, I think it was like sundown countries or counties and stuff, and you have to get out of the jurisdiction at the certain time. We go back to Tulsa in some place, and I'm like, this is really intense and frightening, and it feels so realistic. Like, there's times I'm on the edge of my seat when I'm watching these scenes, and this isn't even the horror of the show, this is just the horror of real life, we're watching our leads trying to run away from these people before they get killed just because of the color of their skin. It is genuinely terrifying to watch. It's intense, it's realistic, it's gritty. It has you on the edge of your seat because you know they're going to be fine because they're our main characters, but you're just left with a sense of, like, how could people be like this? How come the world didn't accept these people or just wouldn't let these people live? And I just always find that frightening and scary, that this is stuff that happened. How many innocent people were killed or hung or just anything because of the color of their skin? I find that frightening and terrifying. And it just adds another level of horror to the show where there's already an immense amount of horror. It is scary. There are times when you're on the edge of your seat, not because of the real world horror, but the extraterrestrial, the frightening, the graphic, the demonic horror. And you're just, what is going on? You know? It's a really intense show. And I'm actually genuinely surprised it worked so well. Because you could take this premise and have it fail, but just the way it made everything work, I think was really well done. This show goes to a lot of weird places. When I mean weird places, I mean each episode feels different, and I think that's a very positive thing to say, because it never feels repetitive, which I really enjoy when a show does that, where, especially in something that is kind of procedural, where we have to get certain places done. I'm not saying this is procedural, but you have to get certain events to happening to get to the end, and it's nice that each episode kind of told a different story, kind of focused on a different character in our world and showed us different outcomes for those characters. We go to a lot of weird places. I'm talking aliens and ghosts and spirits and gods and demons and time travel. Like, it goes all over the place in the genre that is kind of this Lovecraftian identity. It's very graphic, very horrifying, but everything still really works for the most part. Like, you don't know what's going to come next. One episode, we're fighting off these ghosts. The next episode, we're jumping into the past during the Korean War. And you're just like, what? What's going on, But it flows really well. And it gives you a great sense for every character and every beat happening. And I mean, the acting in this show is phenomenal. We could probably just sit here and talk about each individual performance, but that's not this show. Maybe when we do our big end of the year thing where I talk about my favorite shows, we'll talk a little bit more about like the acting and the characters, but just like everyone's knocking out of the park. The supporting cast is great. The people that play Hippolyta and Ruby are standouts to me. I'm sorry I don't remember their names, but I'm just like, these are two characters that could easily have been sidelined throughout the entire show because they're not really the main focus. But when these actresses have their moments, oh my god, is it unbelievably intense and gritty and real, and everything about it works incredibly well. They are just so fascinating and unique, and they have such different journeys and different stories. One's this more like extraterrestrial, angelic story about becoming a woman, and this other one's kind of like this idea of metamorphosis and changing yourself for society. And you're like, how is this show about this man trying to, find his father and how he's like learns about his birthright, about these side characters and their journeys of discovering themselves as women? It's like, that is so unbelievably intense. And you could really tell in that moment that Misha Green really knew what to do with those characters. Just because, I don't want to say if like a lesser talent did it, it wouldn't be as impactful. But if a man... I'll say it this way. You could tell a man wouldn't write this scene. And I'm not saying a man couldn't do it, but it just felt very impactful for women and stuff, and they were great. A standout for me was Jamie Chung as this Korean goddess-like lady. I won't get into her character that much, but I found her to be very fascinating. There was an episode dedicated to her. I think it's one of my two favorite episodes of the show. It was that one and the penultimate episode of this show. Look, if you want to talk about doing something gritty and frightening and so powerful and moving where you're literally just sitting there afterwards like, I can't believe what is on screen in front of me. This is everything I needed this year, this empowering moment. That penultimate episode, the conclusion of that episode, oh my god, was that insanely good. Insanely powerful, insanely moving. I just can't believe this is what we're getting in this show. It's insane. It's just, everything that happens is just so good and it works really well. And our two leads here, they knock it out of the park. Journey Smollett, she is a great actress. This is going to push her up so high. She's going to get so many more roles. I absolutely adore her. She really made this work. Her character, her motivation, everything about her, the way she acts around every character. I love it. She understood what this was, and you could tell there was some genuine ideas being presented for her. She could have easily just been the love interest, but she's like an empowering character that did all this intense stuff. And she was the crux of the show. She really got things moving, and I really liked that. But oh my god, Jonathan Majors, man, this guy really, really, really gets genre pieces. He is somebody, to me, like Carl Urban, who understands when you're in a role like this, go all out and understand it. Tick, the character of Atticus, could have easily have been this kind of one-note character, but the way he plays everything up, connecting to his father and his mother and his love and his time in the war and all this stuff, it fleshes out this character in a way that not a lot of other shows have done recently. He's so grounded and realistic, yet he's willing to understand and explore these alternate ideas that could potentially lead to different outcomes. And it's empowering. This entire show, it's about being a woman, being black, and how do you play a part in this world when society is, pressuring you to be something you're not. You are allowed to be a free thinker and have these ideas, but when society tells you no, and suddenly you are gifted this opportunity to change the world, how do you do that? It's unbelievable. It's very Lovecraftian at times too. Like, it doesn't lean so much into some of those other, like the Cthulhu stuff, but it gives you enough where you're like, this is really cool. We see monsters and creatures and these different things exploring. A lot of horror stuff. If you fright easily, there are some moments in the pilot and in later subsequent episodes that will scare you. I will say that. But never is it more frightening than the real life horror and atrocities that were committed during this time period and time periods before that for African Americans. Like, it is just... everything of the horror works so well. The real life horror and the Lovecraftian horror, it blends into this masterpiece that works really well. it's actually terrifying. And I don't generally get scared when I'm watching television, or I don't get nervous, but there are times where I'm watching this where I'm like, I really wish this wasn't happening right now. Can we please not have this happen right now? And I think that's something you should commend a show for. When it actually puts you on the edge of your seat and you don't know how to feel, that's something we should commemorate and celebrate, because that is impressive to me. It's something that should be celebrated. This show worked really well. Like I said, sometimes it lags a bit, sometimes the characters go places you don't expect, and if you want like a concise story with your lead characters, it does deteriorate from that a bit and go off in other directions, but when it goes off into those other directions, you get some great stuff with these other characters. You know, you're focusing a lot on these people as individuals, and if you look at it as a whole of the series, we start off here, you know, is our people like Letty and Tick, and how do they relate to people like Ruby and Hippolyta and Uncle George and all that stuff. It works, and it's solid and something to be celebrated. I cannot recommend this enough. I think it's some of the best television in a long time. I hope it gets a second season. I know it hasn't been confirmed, but if it's a mini-series, I would put this on the same level as Watchmen, just because it had that impact. It understood exactly what it needed to do. It gave us some incredibly intense and realistic characters while exploring a great mythos of stuff, and some of the best references to Jackie Robinson you will see today. Like, it is just amazing. Everything about it worked so well. And I gotta commemorate Jonathan Majors again for really holding this show together. I can't wait to see whatever he does next. Ant-Man 3, let's see what you got, dude. So overall, I'm going to give Lovecraft Country an 8 out of 10. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.